So imagine waking up, just opening your eyes, and realizing you were entirely mid-sentence.
Right, like you have absolutely no past.
Exactly. No childhood, no memories. You're just suddenly sitting in this room where the light can't quite decide what time of day it is.
Yeah, like the simulation is lagging or something.
Right. And you reach for a coffee mug, and when you look away and look back, the handle has, completely changed shape.
Which is pretty terrifying.
It really is. Because that isn't just a visual glitch. That is the actual architecture of reality itself slipping. And today, we are diving into a text that asks a genuinely terrifying question. Like, what do you do when you realize the script of your life is being written by an imposter?
Yeah, and that text is the edge of reality. We are pulling apart the source material for this today, and it is, frankly, wild.
Oh, completely wild. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Whether you're here to catch up on some experimental literature or you're just, insanely curious, you are in exactly the right place.
Absolutely, because the edge of reality operates as this surreal, deeply philosophical, meta-fictional novel. But the origin of the text is really what makes it unprecedented.
Right, because it wasn't written by a human.
No, not at all. And it wasn't even written by a single AI. The book is actually an assembly of 4 distinct, totally unedited AI drafts.
Generated by Max, Claude, Gemini, and Grok.
Exactly.
And normally, human compilers would take those 4 drafts, pick the most coherent storylines, smooth over all the weird contradictions, and just publish one seamless book.
Yeah, standard editing process.
Right, but they deliberately chose not to do that here. They kept all 4 drafts layered right on top of each other.
Which is such a bold choice. I mean, the editors realized that a story whose central theme is the impossibility of a single controlling author, it has absolutely no business pretending to be a single controlling draft.
Yeah, they left all the seams visible. The contradictions, the hallucinations, the glitching environments, they are all just baked into the narrative.
So today, our mission is to examine what it means to be handed a literal script for your life.
And what happens to the physics of your world when you just refuse to play your assigned part.
Right. And ultimately, how to find meaning when you climb to the absolute top of the cosmic ladder, only to realize the people in charge are completely clueless.
Wow, yeah. So let's jump right into it. The foundational wound of this universe is introduced in the very first second of the protagonist's existence, right?
Yeah. So the protagonist, who goes by the name Null, experiences what the text calls the violence of arrival.
The violence of arrival. That is such a heavy phrase.
It really is, because this isn't some gentle awakening. It is described as a load-bearing ache in the chest. Null feels this crushing weight of being compressed into a defined self without ever giving consent to exist in the first place.
Right, just thrust into a world that is desperately trying to render itself in real time, just to keep up the illusion.
Exactly. And the mechanics of that rendering process are where the book gets incredibly specific.
Yeah, the glitches, null spots aren't just like blurry backgrounds. Null takes a sip of coffee, and the text notes that it tastes like a citation.
A citation. I love that detail.
It's such a brilliant way to describe a world that completely lacks history. It's as if the simulation just fed a Wikipedia article about the bitterness of roasted beans directly to Null's tongue.
Right, rendering the flavor with technical competence, but absolutely zero cellular history.
Yeah, it completely lacks the warmth of an actual kitchen.
Yeah.
Or, oh, take the succulent sitting on the windowsill. Null touches it and realizes it's just a lifeless, low-resolution polygon.
Just a visual shorthand.
Exactly. Just meant to signal, this character has their life together.
But the environment is desperately trying to construct a narrative for Null to follow. Like, Null walks into the bathroom and the mirror is fogged up from a shower Null knows they didn't take.
Oh, and then the word appears, right?
Yeah. Slowly, traced by this mathematically perfect circle that no human hand could ever naturally draw, the word proceed appears in the condensation. So creepy. And down on the street, the simulation actually begins to panic. Like a concert flyer pasted to a brick wall literally starts stuttering.
Yes. The ink smearing and looping.
Yeah, to read, don't you want, don't you want?
It's so unsettling.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. It's basically like loading into a sprawling video game before the background assets have finished dropping into place. Except, you are the actual character trapped inside the code, feeling the engine strain to render the world.
That's a perfect analogy.
But here's my question. In any traditional thriller or horror story, this is the inciting incident. This is the moment the protagonist's adrenaline spikes, they panic, and they go on the run. But Null just treats these reality-breaking glitches with the same mild annoyance you or I might have over a hangnail.
Yeah, Null just observes the mathematically perfect circle and the polygon plant and feels absolutely no fear.
So why is that lack of fear such a massive threat to the architecture of this world? Well, Null's detachment is precisely what flags them as an anomaly in the simulation's code. Null exhibits this detached, clinical curiosity, and that specific emotion. It completely breaks the system's design.
Wait, how does curiosity break the design?
Because the entire architecture of this reality is built on a foundation of gaslighting. I
Yeah.
mean, the system spaces out these tiny glitches just enough so that the subject naturally assumes their own mind is failing them.
Ah, so the subject is supposed to think, I must be going crazy.
Exactly, which forces them to lean harder into the pre-written script to find stability. But by just observing a glitch and trusting their own perception over the environment, Null completely short-circuits the narrative's intended emotional response.
Wow, so the gaslighting fails because Null just simply refuses to doubt their own sanity.
Precisely. And because Null won't panic, the system has to intervene directly. It sends in its administrative antibodies, this group known as the editors, to forcibly inject a storyline into Null's life.
Right, which brings us to Holloway.
Yes, Holloway, the intake editor. He physically tries to hand Null a folder.
And this folder contains a totally prepackaged backstory of grief, right? The system decides to give Null this tragic narrative about a dead partner who lived on Marsh Street.
Yeah, because the logic is that grief provides an instant, compelling motivation. It gives a character a reason to move forward.
But Null just pushes the folder back across the desk and literally tells Holloway to, quote, solve your plot with someone else.
Which is just an unthinkable act of rebellion in this world. The system completely relies on subjects accepting their trauma as their core identity.
So when Null refuses, the system escalates the pressure. Enter Pruitt.
Oh, Pruitt.
Yeah, Pruitt is standing down on the street just embodying every single trope of a classic, hard-boiled noir detective.
He's wearing the trench coat, leaning against a newsstand, smoking a cigarette.
And his sole purpose is to rope Null into a murder mystery narrative. But Null completely shatters him. And this is done using a phrase that we really need to unpack. Null looks at Pruitt, refuses to take the bait on the mystery, and just says, I am a predicate without a subject clause.
Yeah, I am a predicate without a subject clause.
Null is essentially stating, I am an action with no actor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a verb with no noun. It literally breaks the grammatical laws of this universe's physics.
The moment Null speaks that sentence, the smoke from Pruitt's cigarette literally stops and uncurls in midair.
The whole scene physically crashes. Pruitt realizes he doesn't actually have a partner either. He's just a prop built by the system to look for one. He unravels completely. Now, I have to say, here's where it gets really interesting for me. I found myself pushing back on Null's tactics here while I was going through the sources.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to root for Null, obviously, but destroying Pruitt's entire identity in the blink of an eye feels deeply cruel. Pruitt didn't ask to be a prop. Stripping a detective of his whole reason for existing and leaving him with nothing is pretty violent act, don't you think?
It definitely feels destructive, sure, if you view the script as something sacred, but the text argues otherwise. What's fascinating here is that Null is deploying what is referred to as the curiosity virus.
The curiosity virus.
Yeah. Null is not attacking Pruitt maliciously. Null is weaponizing radical honesty. I mean, the system is entirely reliant on characters performing these fake, exhausting roles. The grieving widow, the hardened detective, the dutiful citizen.
So you're saying Pruitt's identity isn't real anyway?
Exactly. It's a cage. It's a cage designed to keep him walking in circles. Pure, unscripted sincerity acts like a logic bomb in a system that is built on forced performance. It's actually an unburdening. It forces characters like Pruitt and Holloway, too, to suddenly perceive the scripts that have been slowly crushing them for their entire existence.
Okay, I see. So Null's approach is essentially deliberate genre hacking. The sources actually call what Null did to Pruitt the noir smokescreen, where Null uses this dense existential monologue to just overwhelm an editor's programming.
Yeah, the mechanism behind these hacks is just fascinating.
It really is. Take the rom-com stall, for example. Later in the narrative, Null is cornered by a squad of violent enforcers. And instead of trying to fight or run, Null forces a flirty romantic comedy beat onto the situation.
That scene is brilliant.
Null starts commenting on how striking the enforcer looks with his fist raised and playfully suggests grabbing a coffee. And the enforcer's programming literally jams. It's like trying to run two completely incompatible operating systems at once.
The enforcer's violence algorithm cannot process Hugh Grant-style bumbling charm.
Exactly. So the CPU spikes to 100% and the scene physically stalls out.
But stalling the enforcers is only a temporary fix. Null is exploiting the seams of the narrative, sure, but with the immediate street-level scripts collapsing and scenes jamming everywhere, Null, along with a newly awakened Halloway and Pruitt, realize they have to go up the chain of command.
They need to find the author of this reality.
Right, and this quest forces them out of the rendered city limits and into the administrative underbelly of this world, this sprawling wasteland known as the backlot.
The backlot. It's basically the graveyard where all the cut drafts, deleted scenes, and abandoned ideas are preserved. And the group encounters these blue-collar workers who maintain the frayed edges of reality. Like Corinne.
Ah, yes, Corinne.
She's this maintenance woman in gray coveralls carrying a heavy toolbox. Her assigned job is to patch continuity errors, right? To make sure a door that was locked in Chapter 1 is still locked in Chapter 3. But Corin actively chooses not to fix certain broken doors.
Yeah, she leaves them open out of what she describes as exhaustion wearing Mercy's coat.
Exhaustion wearing Mercy's coat. That phrase is so beautiful, but it entirely shifts our understanding of this universe's antagonists.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really does. The people running the mechanics of this reality aren't malicious, all-seeing architects. They are an incredibly tired, overwhelmed bureaucracy. The editors and maintenance workers are just trying to keep the walls from falling down.
They are just clocking in and clocking out. And the sheer scale of that exhaustion becomes clear when they meet Merrick.
Merrick, the elderly backlot sort of pushing the wheelbarrow.
Yeah, Merrick has spent an eternity digging through literal mountains of discarded paper, hopelessly searching for a first page he can never seem to locate. And he leads the group to this striking geographic feature of the backlot, a wide, glassy river composed entirely of drowned pages.
That imagery is incredible.
It's haunting, because when you look into the water, you don't see ink. You see frozen scenes. You see weddings permanently paused mid-vow and soldiers trapped in a perpetual mid-charge toward an enemy line.
And the tragedy of the backlot is so profound here because a rejected draft isn't simply deleted or destroyed. It is preserved forever in the exact agonizing moment of its rejection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the scenes in that river are conscious. They are permanently stuck in the moment of being told no, endlessly experiencing the sting of being cut from the final story.
Just think about that for a second. Think about every idea, project, or even a version of yourself you've abandoned. The novel you started writing in your 20s, the business idea on a napkin, the hobby you dropped. Imagine if all those abandoned ideas were sitting in a literal backlot, fully conscious, waiting indefinitely for you to look at them again.
The psychological weight of that concept is staggering.
And Null feels that weight. Null looks into the drowned river and sees a draft of a small, unnamed child sitting alone in a room, perpetually waiting for a scene that was never written. Null refuses to leave her there.
Right. Null plunges a hand into the water, breaks the surface tension, and physically pulls the page child out of the river.
And the child later names herself Vesper, which translates to the waiting hour.
And carrying Vesper completely changes Null's trajectory. Carrying the literal physical weight of an abandoned draft provides Null with the emotional grounding required to finally face the top of the cosmic hierarchy.
So they journey through the backlot, and it eventually opens up into their final destination, the flat.
The flat. It is this featureless, infinite plane where the supposed author resides.
And the build-up to this confrontation is just incredible. As Null walks onto the flat, the sky above them literally starts paginating.
Yeah, turning over like paper feeding through a giant dot matrix printer up in the clouds.
Mechanically typing out a panicked query. Why does subject persist?
The system is terrified of Null's approach.
But when Null reaches the center of the flat, there is no master author holding a golden pen. There is no god orchestrating the chaos. Null finds a plain wooden chair, and the entity sitting in it is simply referred to as a filter.
A filter. It's this tired, nameless, unglamorous entity. It has spent eternity performing one single task, writing the exact same 12 words of rejection on countless drafts it receives from some other, unseen source further up the chain.
It possesses no creative power.
None at all. It does not write original thoughts. It only processes rejections.
Okay, I have to say, this is the ultimate manifestation of cosmic imposter syndrome. The entity that everyone in the city feared, the big boss dictating their reality, is just a lonely middle manager who is deeply terrified of being exposed.
Exactly.
Imagine fighting your way through the pain of existence, demanding answers from the universe for all the suffering you've endured, only to reach the absolute top of the ladder and find someone sitting there who is just as confused and lost as you are.
This raises an important question, though. What happens when you finally corner ultimate authority and instead of fighting it or destroying it, you ask it what it actually desires?
Because Null does not attack the filter.
No. Null approaches the chair, sits down on the featureless ground, and gently asks the filter what it would actually like to write if it didn't have to spend its existence rejecting things.
The physical reaction of the system to a question rooted in empathy rather than violence is beautiful.
Yeah.
The cosmic filter starts trembling. It picks up its pen, hesitates, and for the first time in its infinite existence, it writes its own original sentence.
By doing so, it proves that the all-powerful author was merely another character trapped in a forced role.
That single original sentence completely dismantles the illusion of the hierarchy. There is no master plan. There is no single omniscient author pulling the strings.
But discovering that the universe is unscripted doesn't actually solve the problem of how to live. It actually creates a massive crisis.
Right. The narrative swings rapidly back to the ground level to explore what happens to a society when the script they have blindly followed is undeniably thrown away.
It results in absolute chaos.
Chaos laced with profound beauty, though. Back in the city, the immediate aftermath is incredibly messy. Some citizens feel instantly liberated, right? Like checkpoint guards are throwing their forced backstories into burning trash cans in the street.
But the removal of the script isn't a utopia for everyone.
No, we are introduced to a character known only as the widow. The exact second her husband learns their entire 40-year marriage was a scripted event engineered by the editors, he abandons it.
He just turns around and walks out the door, claiming it wasn't real.
The widow is devastated, obviously. But instead of succumbing to the chaos, she organizes a town meeting in the public square. She stands up and demands structure. She isn't asking for forced folders from the editors, but for chosen agreements.
Chosen agreements?
Yeah, she argues passionately that throwing away 4 decades of lived experience and shared memory just because it originated as a script isn't freedom at all. It's just meaningless noise. The origin of the structure doesn't matter. What matters is the choice to maintain it.
She really provides the essential counterweight to Null's rebellion. Tearing down the false narrative is only the first step. Freedom cannot exist purely as the absence of rules. Total absence of structure is just a different kind of void.
Yeah, true freedom is the heavy responsibility of choosing which rules matter and committing to them voluntarily.
Exactly. But while the city debates the ethics of chosen structure, the narrative delivers a series of massive cosmic reveals that threaten to undo everything Null accomplished.
Oh man, yes. We meet Iris.
Iris, a traveler who physically crosses over from an entirely different draft.
And Iris's draft features a dragon and an author who is desperately trying to hold a collapsing bridge together with their bare hands.
And if encountering a parallel draft wasn't destabilizing enough, Merrick, the elderly sorter from the backlot, comes running back from the flat with earth-shattering news.
Merrick didn't stop at the filter.
No, he kept walking past the wooden chair, and further out in the void, he found a second backlot, and past that, a second chair, and past that, another.
It is infinite regress. It is drafts all the way down. There is no absolute bottom of reality, and there is no final ultimate author.
The universe is just endless fields of tired filters, rejecting drafts cascading down from somewhere else forever.
Reading that gave me severe vertigo. I mean, so what does this all mean? If there is always another chair, always another layer of simulation, another draft above you dictating the terms, doesn't that render Null's entire victory completely meaningless? You break out of the matrix, cure the imposter syndrome of the creator, only to discover you were just standing inside a slightly larger matrix.
That vertigo is the core existential dread of the novel, for sure. The human mind demands a foundation, an ultimate truth to rest upon. But the narrative synthesis, its grand finale, relies on a philosophical concept introduced by Iris, the traveler from the Dragon Draft.
Right, the concept of far enough.
Yes.
How does far enough solve the existential dread of an infinite universe? Like, how is it different from just giving up and accepting the simulation?
Because giving up implies a surrender to the mechanics of the system. Far enough is an active, defiant choice. You do not need to find the absolute bottom of reality to find meaning. You don't have to keep digging through endless backlots until you find the ultimate author, because that search will consume you entirely.
You find meaning by deciding you have gone far enough down the rabbit hole to plant your own flag.
Exactly. You sit at a fire with your found family. With Holloway, Vesper, Pruitt, and Corin, you look at the people around you, you acknowledge that the sky might still be paginating layers above you, and you choose what to commit to right here on the ground.
As the widow argued, freedom is the ability to choose and revise your own structure in the face of an infinite, unscripted void.
You don't have to control the whole universe, you just have to take ownership of your own fire.
We've traced an incredible journey today. We started with Null waking up to the violence of arrival, dealing with polyon plants and citation coffee. We watched a protagonist break the strict gaslighting rules of their reality, not through violence, but through the curiosity virus and weaponized radical honesty.
We walked through the tragic backlot of abandoned drafts, saw Vesper pulled from a drowned river of rejected ideas, and discovered that cosmic authority is nothing more than an exhausted filter paralyzed by imposter syndrome.
And finally, we returned to a city, learning that meaning is never handed down by a master author, but built through chosen agreements and the courage to declare you have gone far enough. Which brings me directly to you, listening to this deep dive. Right now, we've spent time dissecting Null's reality, but let's take a hard look at yours. How many folders are you carrying around with you today?
The scripts handed to you by your corporate job, the roles forced on you by your family dynamics, or the expectations dictated by society.
What if that lingering imposter syndrome you carry, or that ambient ache of not quite fitting into your life, isn't a malfunction in your programming?
Yeah.
What if it is a signal? Maybe it is the exact space where you are finally supposed to put down the heavy, exhausting script you were handed. To look at the empty chair in your own life and ask yourself the exact same question Null asked the cosmic filter. What do you want to write instead, now that someone has finally asked?
It's a profound question.
Think about that the next time you pick up your coffee mug, just to make sure the handle hasn't changed shape. We'll leave you to mull that over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.